we finished talking about the different Americans of courage, creativity, and on the battlefield, and create inventions. I couldn't think of the other one. Inventions. So remember, America has kind of grown into the nation that it is. Remember, it started off with the Native Americans here, and then the colonists came. They created the colonies, and then eventually they started to travel west. We invented the railroad, which helped people travel from east to west, and the country is growing at this time, okay? And then more people started to come, more immigrants, especially whenever they heard America was a place where you could make a profit and stuff, you could open a business, all of that, more people came here. All right, so let's talk about 164, the last states that were added to the United States, because remember, it started off with the 13 colonies, now we have 50, but it started with 13, so, all right, the last states are added. Okay, go ahead, Micah.
For a while, 48 states made up the United States of America, but in 1959, the last two states were added to the Union. Alaska became the 49th state. Alaska is a
Peninsula.
peninsula that borders Canada. Because parts of Alaska is the Arctic region, has some glaciers. A glacier is a long moving body of ice. Denali
Denali.
is the highest mountain peak in North America. Hawaii becomes the 50th state. Hawaii is made of several islands. The Pacific Ocean, the Hawaii Islands have volcanoes.
Kaluuya, I think.
Kaluuya
Yeah,
is a
something
volcano
like
that is still active.
Good. Okay, so so we had 48 states, and then they added the last two states to the Union. Now, these states were different because they weren't necessarily connected. That's why they call it the United States of America, because all the 50 states are connected to one another, right? Like, let me show you here, just a reminder if you don't remember. So all the 50 states are connected like this. But the last two states they added, which were Alaska and Hawaii, were different because they're not actually connected to the United States. They're not a part of the states here. So these are actually just 48 states on here. You know, most of the time we look at it and we think, oh, 50 states, but that's just 48. So Alaska and Hawaii are different. So if you look on this map here, you see how this is North America. So we have the United States, which are 48 states, but then way up here we have the United States. That's where Alaska is, okay? So it's actually connected to Canada, and it's connected to the Arctic Ocean as well. But it still is an American state, Alaska. And then down here, kind of small, but this is Hawaii here in the Pacific Ocean. Okay, so Hawaii was the 50th state. It was the last state that was added. Okay, so America had two extra states added, Alaska and Hawaii. What made them different was that they weren't actually connected to the United States. They were separate, but they still are considered states. Okay, so let's talk about territories that America has. Okay, now they're not actually states, but they're places that America owns. All right, 165. All right, go ahead, Cadence.
Okay. Before coming states, Alaska and Hawaii were called territories. A territory is a land that belongs to and is protected by the United States, but
Governs
itself. There are territories in other parts of the world that belong to America. The island of Guam,
Puerto Rico,
American
Samoa, American Samoa.
American Samoa, and 3 of the Virgin
Islands.
Islands are American territory.
Good. So America also has territories, which is land that is protected and governed by the United States. So again, they're not states, but America owns them pretty much. And so that's Puerto Rico, Guam, American Samoa, and 3 of the Virgin Islands. Okay. So Puerto Rico, I can show you on the map here. Puerto Rico is in the Caribbean here, the Caribbean here. It doesn't have the actual name of it, but it's right here. Guam is all the way here. Hold on, sorry. On the other side here, that's where Guam and America. Yeah, you can't see them because they are small, but I'm just showing you like the areas that they're in. So American Samoa and Guam are here.
Can't really see the whole thing. It's kind of small.
Yeah, and then here is where the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico are. So they're not states, they're just
Greenland.
territories. Yeah, they're not states, they're just territories that America owns, okay? So let's turn the page to 166, 50 United States. So there are now 50 states that make up our country. That is why our country is named the United States of America. Each state is different and special in many ways, yet each part of the country is each part of our one large country. So they have, do you remember? So which state is your home state? Oh, you have to unmute yourself, sorry.
Wait, like where I was born?
So what's your state that you're in right now?
Oh, Louisiana.
Yes.
Mine's in Georgia.
Georgia, okay.
Atlanta.
No, Louisiana. So which
Louisiana.
state is the largest state? Does anyone
Louisiana.
know?
Texas.
Texas.
Huh? California.
Alaska.
I think it's Texas.
Mhm.
Is Texas
Look at the map. Look at the map.
smaller? I live in Lafayette, Louisiana.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
that's
not what I asked. I
Texas.
asked which state is the largest.
Oh, which
Texas.
state is the largest?
Alaska. Alaska. is the largest state.
I don't. Where is Alaska? I don't see Alaska.
Alaska is, if you look on page 166, look, it's up there on the left, the green. See it? That's Alaska.
Can't actually see
Okay.
it because I don't have my book.
Okay, I know, you told me. Okay, which state is the smallest?
Hawaii.
You might not even see it because it's small. Look again, it's on the East Coast, let me tell you that.
Yeah.
East Coast means to the right of your map.
Hawaii.
Not Hawaii.
Oh, South Carolina.
Rhode
Oh
Island.
no, yes, Rhode Island. I hope you found it.
Yeah, I did.
Rhode Island is the smallest state. Rhode Island.
Kelly, why
So
would
it's
you
all
think
the way
it
to the right at the top.
Oh, I
Look,
see.
you'll see Maine, then you'll see the orange, which is New
I see.
Hampshire, Vermont, and then Rhode Island is that. But yeah, we're talking about the size of the state. So we can look at it on the map and say, oh, that doesn't look small, but when you go there, it's not big. Okay? So yes, Rhode Island, finding our answers. Okay, so number 4, name the group of islands that became a state. What are the islands that became a state? You just kept saying it a minute ago.
Hawaii.
Hawaii, yes, Hawaii is a bunch of different islands. But they're all one state. And Hawaii is on 166 at the bottom. Okay? All right, cool. Let's turn the page to 168. Tomorrow's America.
Tomorrow's America.
I didn't bring my book today.
Okay, so in his Gettysburg Address, Abraham Lincoln said that the United States of America is a nation of the people, by the people, for the people. That means that America is the people who live here. Every American who has ever lived has been a part of America's history in some way. If you are an American, you already have a role in America's story. How will you help your country? how will you make a difference? You can begin to help your country by being a good citizen. So let's talk about good citizenship on 169. As we have read about some of the people who have built America, we have seen many examples of what a good American citizen is. There are ways you can be a good American citizen as a young person. Keep learning about the United States and the people who made it free. Learn about as much as you can. Be an American patriot. Be proud to be an American. Be thankful for the blessings God has provided in this great land. Remember that many people do not have everything you might have. Okay, so these are ways you want to be a good citizen. You know, you want to just make sure that you're not out committing crime and destroying things in your country. You want to be a good citizen. Okay? A citizen means that you are a part of that country. So you're an American citizen because you live in America. Okay, let's turn to 170. Let's talk about the communities, the different communities that we have in our country. So I'm going to read the top part and then I'll let you read the rest. So it might seem like a big job to be a good citizen in such a big country, but we can all be good citizens in our own community. So let's talk about the different kind of communities and you can figure out which one you live in. So first we have what's called cities. Okay, cities. All right, go ahead. Because you had, yeah.
It might seem like a big job to be a good citizen in such a big country, but if you begin in your own community.
The next part, cities. I read that part already.
Oh, some cities are larger than others. Large cities are known as urban areas. If you live in a very large city, you might live in a tall apartment building that has many stories to it. There may be 100 or more families that live in your building. You may even ride an elevator to get to your apartment. You probably like to get to park to enjoy the outdoors. Whenever your city might be, you can be sure it is a busy place to live. There might be pedestrians walking from place to place or busy traffic. Some cities are located near urban areas are called suburbs or suburban areas. In your city, you might live in an area, neighborhood and play in your backyard with the friends from your street. How could you help in a city?
Good. So we have what's called cities. Some people live in large cities. So you could think of like you could think of like New York City or like Atlanta, Los Angeles, Chicago. These are examples. Well, Los Angeles is in California. These are examples of cities. That's like big cities. So a lot of times the people live in like big buildings like how you have here. This is actually a picture of New York City right here on 170 because that's the new Twin Tower. But anyway, so yeah, so it just depends. Some people live in huge cities, okay? And so it's a busy place to live in because you got a lot of people that work in the city. It's a lot of traffic, people that come probably visit, tour in the city. That's where there'll be. So a city is a busy, busy place. So you look at Lafayette and we'll say, oh, it might be a city. Somewhat. It's a small city compared to those bigger cities, but okay. So some cities are located near areas called suburbs, and that's where you'll find neighborhoods where people live in these areas, which are called the suburbs. Okay, you'll find neighborhoods, homes. Okay, that's always connected to a city. So you have the city, then you have the suburbs, people that live outside of the city. Okay, so let's talk about towns. 171 towns. Okay. All right, go ahead, Bailey, 171.
A town is smaller than a city. There are probably no large stores or malls in your town. Instead, you might run errands with your family at small location shops. Maybe your parents stop to talk to people who work there because they see your family often. If your town is small enough, your family could probably walk to or ride bicycles to the places in your town. How could you help the town a town?
Okay, good. Thank you. So a town is smaller than a city. So we have a city, which of course is a larger place to live in. And then we have what's called a town. Now, towns are usually really small. You won't really find like big stores there, like a mall or something. You'll probably have to go into the city to go to the mall. But they will have like little small grocery stores and stuff like that inside of a town. Okay. So if your town is small enough, some towns are super small. Everybody knows each other in the town. You know, it's like every there's like one place for every little thing in a town. So it just depends, you know, where you live. So do you live in a town or a city? Which one are you a part of? Nobody knows? City?
Town. Town.
City.
Town.
Mm-mm. No, you live in cities.
City.
Town.
City.
No, you live in a city, not a town.
City.
Yes, a city. A town would be like, have you heard of like, let's say Karen Crow or like Cecilia, Bro Bridge, and then that's actually not a town, that's a rural community, but like they're smaller than the rest. So,
I heard Bro
you know,
Yeah, I know Bo Bridge and all.
yeah, so those are more like
I know about
smaller.
Kenco.
Okay. And then, like I said, they can also be a rural community.
What about
but, you
downtown?
know, that's
Is it-
that's the city.
Downtown.
Yeah, that's a city. Okay, let's talk
A
about a
city.
rural community. 172.
Or short.
All right, go ahead, Austin.
Okay. Whatever. Okay. If you live in a rural community, you might building at your home. Your family may grow crops such as corn or wheat
Wait,
to sell.
I think you skipped a few lines. Go back again, start all over.
Okay.
Put your
Okay.
finger where you're reading so that you don't lose your spot.
Okay. If you live in a rural community, you might live on a farm. The barn is probably the biggest building at your home. Your family may grow crops such as corn or wheat to sell. You probably have animals that live at your farm. Some of them might be pets, others might be livestock. They may be cows to milk or horses to ride. Living at a farm means you have plenty of room to run and play. How could you help on a farm?
Good. So rural communities are like the country or the countryside. That's why I said, like, we think about like Bro Bridge or Cecilia, they could be considered both a town and a rural community because of how they are. But, you know, they're kind of growing. So, you know, that's why I wouldn't consider them just strictly farm places. But there are some places where it's mostly farm. Like that's all they really have is farms back there. And those are rural communities. People live there and it's mostly used for farming, okay? So they really won't have like stores there, anything. They'll have to go drive a little further away to get to wherever they need to go, okay? So that's a rural community. So we have cities, towns, and rural communities, okay? All right, so that is pretty much the end of our book. So it talks about the privilege to pray, which means we have the freedom to pray, and then the privilege to serve, meaning we can get jobs that could help and serve our communities, okay? So that is it. This is the end of our social studies book. So we are done with this. So this will be our last test this week in social studies. So, and then science will finish in a couple of weeks, but that's it for our social studies.